So there was an incident on a college campus that apparently spiraled out of control. This is in AZ Central, Arizona Central. They say 2 students at the University of Arizona will be charged with misdemeanors after a video showing them protesting a Customs and Border Protection event on campus went viral. UA President Robert Robbins, that is a pretty funny name, announced Friday. The potential charges stem from a Border Patrol presentation to a student club, the Criminal Justice Association, on campus on March 19th. A video of the incident showed 2 Border Patrol agents in a classroom giving a presentation with people outside the door recording them and calling them Murder Patrol murderers and an extension of the KKK. After the agents leave the classroom, a group followed them until they left campus, chanting Murder Patrol. Video footage on social media shows. Conservative media and commentators shared the video on social media and blogs as an example of free speech issues on college campuses. In the letter sent to students posted online, Robbins said the protest represented a dramatic departure from our expectations of respectful behavior and support for free speech on this campus. Now, they also go on to say, UA police determined Friday that they, quote, will be charging 2 students involved in the incident with interference with the peaceful conduct of an educational institution, which is a misdemeanor. A Class 1 misdemeanor could result in up to 6 months of jail time, and UA police will also continue to investigate the matter for potential additional criminal violations. Okay, so let's walk through this. There's an event on a college campus where they invited Border Patrol people to give a speech. I guess it's some sort of, law enforcement enthusiast group on campus, and they invited them, and these people came and they gave a speech. And there were people who were disrupting it as protesters, calling them Murder Patrol and an extension of the KKK and whatnot. Okay, so first of all, do I agree that Border Patrol is an extension of the KKK? No. I think that goes a little bit too far. Now, having said that, are there legitimate criticisms of Border Patrol? Of course. Now, this is not ICE, to be fair. But when you talk about ICE, there's a lawsuit going on through the federal court system right now where they've been accused of having literal slaves. So they take people who just cross the border and they make them do forced labor. And it's at a private prison facility, which we all know the problems with private prison facilities are endless. So, that is extremely disturbing and happening right now with our money in our name. And a lot of people on the right refuse to criticize law enforcement agencies because they're somewhat authoritarian, where they think no, they have badges, so they must be serious. No, they're engaged in insane violations of human rights where they're doing forced labor, and that's not okay. Literal allegations of slavery that courts have said have merit. So I am going to criticize the shit out of ICE, and I am going to criticize Customs and Border Protection when they fuck up. Now, having said that, Customs and Border Protection is not ICE, and so it is a little different. Now, so there are legitimate criticisms of them, and should these students be allowed to protest these speakers? 100%. 100%. But let's be clear also that if they're protesting to make an argument and say, here's why these guys are bad, that's perfectly cool. If they're protesting to say, we want to censor and deplatform and ban these speakers from Customs and Border Protection, well, no, now you're authoritarian, and you're saying, I don't believe in free speech, and I think they should be censored and deplatformed and shouldn't have any say at all, which is dumb. I don't agree with that. But here's the hilarious twist of irony at the end of this story here. So I'm against the protesters if what they're saying is, we want you off our campus, and we don't want anybody from a border patrol to speak or whatever. I'm against that because you have to let people speak. You have to. Again, you want to protest them saying, here's why these guys are terrible, and we're going to explain it. Totally cool. And in fact, I support your right to do that. And I would probably agree with some of the criticisms you make. Not the KKK one, that goes way too far. But I would agree with some of the criticisms. But in the hilarious twist of irony at the end here, because up until this point, it is fair to criticize the protesters and say, you guys might be trying to deplatform them and take away their ability to speak, and that's not cool. But as a direct reaction to this, the protesters get now apparently going to be arrested and charged with crimes. So now we come full circle, And now there are literal violations of the free speech of the protesters on college campus, on this college campus. So the left-wing protesters who are against the Border Patrol are having their free speech rights violated. Now, listen, I don't agree with the idea of abolishing the border or Border Patrol. I think we should have a border like all countries have borders, but also have very open-minded, tolerant, left-wing regulations that are reasonable, that aren't insane, where you like put kids in cages and shit like that, okay? But, so point is, I don't necessarily agree with the protesters, or at least I don't think I do. But there is now no doubt that their free speech rights are being violated because they have every right in the world to protest the Border Patrol people, and yes, even to be loud and obnoxious and aggressive about it, and even to be wrong about the shit they're saying against the Border Patrol people. They're allowed to say, you're the extension of the KKK. Now, again, I don't think that's true, but they're allowed to say that. They're allowed to call them Murder Patrol. 100% they're allowed to say that. That's free speech. But now, in a weird twist of irony, their free speech rights are being violated, and now we will wait and see. Will conservative commentators who were screaming about how much they love free speech when the Customs and Border Patrol people were giving their talk, they say they love free speech, all these conservatives, now will they turn around and say, hey, listen, that cuts both ways, dog. That means I don't want anybody getting charged because they protested? Are you kidding me? No. No, release them. No arrest, no criminal record, no jail time, no fine, no nothing. Freedom of speech. I don't agree with them. They said crazy things. I don't like what they said, but they have every right to say it, so let them go. They're not going to say that. So honestly, in a weird way, I think both sides on this issue and in this story are hypocrites. Because the conservatives, no doubt, screamed about, oh my God, you're shutting down the free speech of the Border Patrol people who are coming here to give a talk. How could you? I believe in free speech. And then now that there is a literal violation of free speech because fucking charges are being brought against them for speech. Now that there's charges against the left, they're going to say, oh, did I say I love free speech? I meant that when it's our side. Go ahead and charge the protesters because they're bad. But also, keep it real. The left-wing protesters are hypocrites too. Because if the whole point of protesting the Border Patrol people was to say, we're trying to deplatform you and censor you and shut you the fuck up, well, then you're saying, I'm against the free speech of the Border Patrol people. But now that you're literally being charged for protesting and your free speech rights are literally being violated, now you're going to turn around and say, my free speech! How can you give me a criminal record for just protesting? Ah. So now, here comes my smug ass. I come full circle to tell you guys this. Now do you see the value of free speech? Now do you see it? The reality is the Border Patrol people should be allowed to talk, okay? People who come to protest them should be allowed to protest them. But the point of the protest shouldn't be, I'm going to try to shut you up completely, because then that's totally illegitimate. And, of course, the flip side of that is, nobody should get a criminal record for trying to protest, no matter how obnoxious it is. So, free speech cuts both ways. And there's going to be only a very fringe, tiny minority of people on this issue and in this story who really understand the entire thing I just laid out for you. Because most people are looking for a political home. I need to find a home. Which side am I on? No. If you really want to be principled about this, you take the position I just took right now. Which is, the Border Patrol people have a right to speak. People have a right to protest. And they should all be allowed to speak, and they should all be allowed to protest, and nobody should get criminal records, full stop. Now, if the idea was, okay, you can protest and that's cool, but we're going to have to let the event proceed, well, that's totally fine. And if that means you got to protest outside, or, you can't shout down the speaker, then yeah, you got to enforce the rules to allow them to speak. But certainly no criminal record. Because that is an egregious, literal violation of free speech from a legal perspective, like against the First Amendment type thing. So, really interesting story, and it exposes quite a bit about the hypocrisy on this issue.